Today, we're going to break down one of the most sprawling and frankly disturbing texts you could ever come across. It's a 1,900-page note that tries to create a single, unified theory for literally all of human history, religion, and technology. Now, I want to be really clear about something right up front. Our goal here is not to endorse any of these views, not at all. It's to understand the structure of the argument itself, to see how a theory this massive is even built.
Okay, let's just dive right in. We're starting with a quote that shows you just how ambitious and kind of startling the connections in this text really are. The author's linking the rise of ancient global economics to the birth of monotheism, and then arguing that this was all a setup for our modern age of technology. Yeah, it's a wild claim, and believe me, we're just getting started. So, the author's entire worldview, this whole massive thing, it all boils down to one single fundamental conflict. He says all of human history is basically a war between two opposing forces. On one side, you've got what he calls biology. You know, our genes, our instinct to protect our family, to form hierarchies, basic natural selection. And on the other side, there's post-biology, a force that's driven by ideas, technology, and these abstract concepts like universalism and equality, all trying to override our basic nature.
And you got to understand, for the author, this isn't just some abstract idea you debate in a philosophy class. No, he sees this conflict as the literal engine driving, well, everything. Religion, politics, all of recorded history.
So, here's the key takeaway. He frames this as an active struggle, a real war. In his view, ideas and technologies aren't just neutral tools we use. No, they are systems, and they're specifically designed to suppress our most basic biological instincts. That impulse to favor our own kin, to create hierarchies, and to just, compete to survive.
So, this is where it gets really interesting. How does this grand theory apply to something as old and powerful as religion? Well, he doesn't see it as being about faith at all. For him, religion is more like a kind of social software.
His argument is that monotheistic religions, especially the ones that come out of the Bible, are essentially social technologies. He claims they were designed to completely subvert the natural biological order of the world and replace it with a new post-biological operating system for all of humanity. In this table here, it just lays it all out, right? He contrasts what he calls the biological values of the pagan world, things like loyalty to your family, natural hierarchies, warrior virtues, with the post-biological values of monotheism. And these new values, like universal love and equality, they don't just challenge the natural pyramid of power. They flip it completely upside down, saying the last shall be first.
And this brings us to a really radical conclusion he makes. His logic goes something like this. If every single person is of infinite value in the eyes of God, then that core mechanism of evolution, survival of the fittest, natural selection, it just stops working. You can't have the fittest survive if the weakest are considered sacred.
Okay, so he's applied this lens to religion. Now he does the exact same thing with secular history, arguing that one single conflict has basically defined the entire history of the English-speaking world.
He points to one single event, the Norman conquest of England in 1066. And for him, this isn't just some dusty old battle from the history books. No, this is the event, the ground zero for this ideological war that he claims we're still fighting today.
So in his telling of it, the invading Normans were this purely biological kin-based aristocracy. They operated on hierarchy and the right of conquest. But the Anglo-Saxons they defeated, well, he presents them as carrying the seeds of a post-biological, egalitarian society that's based on individual rights.
And then he just traces this one conflict, like a red thread, straight through history. He argues the American Revolution wasn't just about taxes. It was a long overdue Anglo-Saxon revolt against the Norman system of kings and aristocrats. And he goes even further, framing the American Civil War as the final battle between a Norman-descended aristocratic South and an Anglo-Saxon egalitarian North.
So where does all this lead? Well, this is where it all builds to a pretty chilling conclusion. For the author, this ancient war between biology and post-biology, a war that's played out in religion and in history, is now all converging on one single technological endgame. So you have to ask, right? If this ideological war has been raging for thousands of years, where is it all going? What does winning even look like for this post-biological force? And his answer is, yeah, it's deeply disturbing. He argues that for post-biology to completely win, biology itself has to be completely wiped out. So death, in this way of thinking, isn't the end.
It's a doorway?
Let me put it another way. From his perspective, biological self-destruction isn't a failure. It's the final, necessary step. To truly conquer our own biological nature, we have to completely get rid of it.
Okay, so this slide really breaks down his final, kind of shocking logic. It goes in 4 steps. First, he says egalitarianism stops evolution, leading to a biological dead end. Second, he equates that dead end, physical death, with a brand new technological beginning. Third, at death, our biological matter, our minds, can be treated as pure information. And finally, that information can be scanned, uploaded, and get a new kind of life inside a computer. And that, in his view, is the technological singularity, the final escape from biology.
And this is the final, terrifying choice he lays out for humanity. He frames Auschwitz as the horrifying endpoint of biology, using technology to enforce its most brutal, hierarchical impulses. The singularity, in his view, is the opposite. It's technology finally conquering and consuming biology altogether. For him, this is it, the final resolution of that core conflict he started with.
So, that's the anatomy of this grand, dark theory. And it leaves us with a really big question. Not about whether he's right or wrong, but about us. What is it about the human mind that finds these single, all-encompassing answers so appealing, especially when they so often seem to lead to such dark, destructive places?